Olson stone, and today I'm going to show you how to paint a loose, colorful watercolor of a field of flowers and the ocean using this Rembrandt 24 color watercolor set. I'm very excited to show you how to paint this beautiful, colorful painting of Fisherman's Bay, New Zealand. I've added two colors to this set, which are silver and opaque white. So I love all the colors in this set. It's absolutely the most gorgeous set of colors, but I like to have a little silver sometimes. Maybe I'm painting bird wings or something where I want to have a little sparkle, and white is always handy. Opaque white is my favorite white of all the watercolor whites. So let's get started. I'm going to be working from back to front. I'm going to start with the sky using cobalt blue. I'm going to put a nice big line of cobalt blue in the back here. Beautiful blue sky. And I'm going to rinse my brush, and I'm going to just lighten the color ever so slightly with water. And I made a few strokes that kind of mimic clouds. I'm using a number 12 silver black velvet brush. So now I'm going to pick up some quinacridone rose, and I'm going to put that down towards the horizon. And I'm going to add a little bit of yellow ochre to that, and a little more cobalt blue. And I'm going to paint some strokes to kind of make it look like there are beautiful clouds floating in the sky offshore. I've left a little bit of white. I'm using a Rembrandt watercolor sketchbook. This is 8 inches by 6 inches. So now for the ocean. I want the ocean to be more of a turquoise blue, so I'll be using cerulean blue and some Prussian blue. Prussian blue is the dark one right there. And I'm going to put that stroke down carefully along the horizon without letting it touch the sky, except for just a couple of places. So I want the watercolor to mix the ocean color and the sky color together, but only in a couple of places. So where I don't want it to mix, I leave a little barrier of dry paper in between. So now coming closer, I'm going to add some Viridian to my turquoise blue mixture. I want the watercolor to become more turquoise as it comes towards the viewer. I'm going to bring it all the way over to the side and cross here, and I've sketched in some flowers on the other side of this path. This is going to be the path, so that's why I'm making these sort of lumpy marks, because I want to leave room to paint my flowers. You always have to think ahead with watercolor. Okay, so now I'm going to paint the sea cliff. I'm going to use yellow ochre, and I'm going to mix it with the cobalt blue, and also I'm going to use some Madder Lake. Madder Lake is a rich rosy red, very similar to alizarin crimson, but much prettier. I want to make a nice 3-color gray for my cliff. So coming across the top of the cliff and down towards the bottom. There we are. And at the bottom of the cliff, there's a little bit of shadow and light, so representing some texture, some rocks or something. So I'm adding ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And I'm going to put a few strokes, kind of darker paint at the bottom of the cliff. And I'm going to let the water do its thing. Let it just kind of move the paint around. And just go with that. Rinsing my brush. Now let's start on the foreground. I'm going to start with the path first. I'm going to use cadmium red medium and lots of water. So just kind of rinse my brush off and let it mix with some of that other gray color that I already had. And I just want to fill this space in with this nice kind of pinkish gray color for my path. So I already have a beautiful color scheme, and now I'm getting ready to add the real colorful stuff, which is all of these flowers. I'm going to start on the left with the lavender flowers. I'm going to start with mauve, and I'm going to add some cobalt blue to it. So I'm going to start with a nice bluish purple, all with my number 12 brush. I'm making some nice tall strokes of this lavender color. And now to my lavender, I want to add some pink, so I'm going to go back to the quinacridone rose. I'm going to add a few strokes of that pink right into the purple while it's still wet. Rinse my brush. Now I'm going to pick up some ultramarine blue, And I'm going to add some ultramarine blue to some of the outer edges of the lavender. So when I paint purple, I like to have some pinkish purples and some bluish purples. I always like to think of my colors on the color wheel, and I want to make sure that I have colors going in both directions. So purple goes towards blue on the right and towards pink on the left. I'm going to add some cadmium red medium. I want to just warm up a couple of the purples down here at the bottom. That really will capture the viewer's attention, some of that bright red color. Rinsing my brush again. Now I'm going to start working on some of the yellow flowers that you see in the front. So I'm going to paint those here. It started with cadmium lemon, and I mixed it with a little cadmium yellow medium first as well. And I'm staggering these, so these are all in a row. My yellow ones are going to be staggered. And I want a couple of them going off the page. Having them going off the page at the bottom gives the viewer the sense of looking over the flowers and into this beautiful view. So I want to vary my yellows. Now I'm going to use some gamboge. Looking at gamboge, it looks kind of brown. It looks very similar to yellow ochre or raw sienna, but when you paint with it, it's a very, very rich, gorgeous golden yellow. Now I'm going to add some cadmium orange and just put a few hints of that down here at the bottom. Value creates dimension, so having dark yellows and light yellows will give my flowers dimension. I'm going to use some of the same cadmium orange color and mix it with a little yellow ochre and go over to the other side of the path and paint some of these pretty flowers. I'm not sure what they are, but they're very, very orange. Now I'm going to pick up some Madder Lake and some mauve. Those two colors mixed together make a really gorgeous red. And I'm going to paint some red flowers, just like that. And now we're ready to start adding some greens. Oh, one more thing first. I'm going to add some pink flowers, just a nice loose shape of them down here in the corner. There we are. Now we're ready for greens. So this set comes with Viridian, Permanent Green, Hooker's Green, and Sap Green. And to those greens, I can add a variety of blues and a variety of yellows because I want green going in both directions on the color wheel too. I want greenish blues and yellowish greens and bluish greens. So I'm going to start with Permanent Green. And I'm going to add some gamboge to it. Really beautiful sunny green. And I'm going to put some nice strokes of that over here. Then I'm going to add some Hooker's Green and give that nice sunny yellow green some weight and make it a bit bluer. Now even bluer still with the addition of ultramarine. I'm painting around the edges of most of my flowers because they're still wet. So I don't want too much green bleeding into the colors, and I want to leave the little bits of white sparkle also. Now I'm going to pick up some sap green. I'm going to add some cerulean to it. I love cerulean and sap green mixed together. It's just gorgeous. And I'm going to put that down here around these pink flowers, and also a little more cerulean. I'm going to put some of that green back here on the opposite side of my path. Just kind of going down the side of the path like that, and a little bit of purple at the bottom where the flowers are right up against the path, just to give it a bit of definition and fill in that hole. Okay, now on to more greens. Let's use cadmium lemon and permanent green. And we'll put those really bright greens up here where they're catching lots of sunlight. Now let's add some yellow ochre. So the greens come a little further down around the yellow flowers. Now let's add some Hooker's Green and some rose and ultramarine. And now back to some lighter green. So cerulean blue and yellow ochre, also a really nice combination. The variety of greens that you can paint with this set is just endless. And I think I'd like to give the path a little bit of texture. So I'm going to use some of this umber. Still have some green in my brush, so I need to rinse it a little bit more. Okay, some umber. And I'm going to just go along the edge here of this line. And I'm going to pick up some of this pink that I had mixed up. Now I want to paint a few strokes of white out in the ocean. So when I paint with white, I tend to use less water, so it looks a little bit dry. And if it looks too dry and you don't like the texture, rinse your brush and come back in with just some plain water and put a little bit of that underneath the white. So I leave it a little bit of a harder line on top and a softer line at the bottom. I'm also going to add a couple of strokes back here in my sea cliff to give it some texture. And I'm going to add a little more pink to my purple flowers. Really want them to overlap this sea cliff. So I just need a little more color. I've added some cobalt blue as well. And a couple of extra strokes down here in my pink flowers for some dimension. And now I want to have one spot of cadmium red light. I'm going to put that right here. Thank you so much for joining me to paint this beautiful, colorful, loose, fresh flower painting of Fisherman's Bay, New Zealand.